Welcome back to another webcast of AB3 Sports. I'm your host, Richard. This week we have some news in football, baseball, and we're going to cover basketball in our Richards Rants this week. We have all that ahead. This week we're going to start with baseball news, and we want to start off by congratulating the New York Yankees, who swept the Minnesota Twins in their best-of-5 series, finishing off the Twins at home this week. Big congratulations to the Yankees as they await the winner of the Rays-Rangers series. Right now the Rangers are up 2-1, with a chance to close it out at home, not sending Cliff Lee to the mound, but still have a 13-game winner going out there to try and close out the Rays. Moving over to the National League, we have the Giants and the Braves tied at 1 game apiece. And we have the Phillies leading the Reds 2-0. In other baseball news, the players were granted their meeting with the umpires come this December to discuss their concerns with some of the blown calls and the increased number this year of the blown calls that have happened all around baseball. The players feel the only consistency the umpires have is their inconsistency. They haven't been very good this year and they want to know why, and it's a good step by baseball to make sure that they can meet with the players and discuss their side too, so they can air it out and move forward and make sure that they don't have any of these problems going on into the future. That's all we have this week for baseball news. Now we're going to move on to a little bit of football news, and what we want to talk about this week is the New England Patriots trading wide receiver Randy Moss to the Minnesota Vikings for only a third-round pick. First, we're going to talk about how it's going to help the Vikings. It's going to help the Vikings because of what he can do down the field. He can get that extra defender out of the box for Adrian Peterson to run. It gives Brett Favre somebody that can just go up and get the football and make a play for him now that he doesn't have Sidney Rice, because Bernard Berrien, not that guy. Percy Harvin, not that kind of receiver. While he's a playmaker, it's just not what he does. Randy Moss, one of the most electrifying athletes in the game ever to play the position. So he's going to go up and get the ball for Brett Favre, and he's going to take a lot of pressure off of that offense and that offensive line that hasn't done a good job of protecting Brett. First, we want to show you a clip of what Randy Moss is capable of when he's going downfield. We're going to show you here what he can do when he stretches the field and how he can do it all on his own with only man-on-man coverage, and you can't guard this guy with just one man because you see what he's going to do to him. Next, we want to show you this clip here of what New England's going to be missing without Randy Moss when he doesn't even have the ball in his hands. As you can see, all the defenders, they clear out for Randy Moss, giving him that extra attention we were talking about, and it allows receivers like Wes Welker, Danny Woodhead, they all come right underneath that defense. All great receivers, don't get me wrong, great receivers after they have the ball in their hands, but they're not going to be that big play to stretch the field for you, and they come right underneath, and they're going to take it right in the end zone for a first down. It just cleared up so much room. Now the defense is going to have to suck up on the Patriots offense because they don't have anybody to go down the field. They don't have that big play receiver or that threat there that they have to show that respect and attention to allow these guys in Wes Welker and Danny Woodhead and these other smaller receivers to play their game. Now you're going to have people playing a game, you're going to have receivers playing a game that they're not accustomed to playing. Tom Brady, one of the best to ever play the position. You can't ever take anything away from him, but you got to believe he was a little bit hurt by this because now it's right back to where the Patriots used to be with no big name receivers. And he's going to need that to help him balance off the defenses because while they've done it before in New England, they also had a great running game back then as well. They don't have that tailback, that dominant running game that they had in years past before they had Randy Moss. Even while they had Randy Moss, they had a good running back, a good running game that complemented the passing game. They just chose to air it out all the time. So Tom Brady's going to miss that aspect in his offense. While he's still going to do good, Tom Brady and the Patriots are always going to compete. I believe that they lost a lot more than they gained with that third-round pick. With the trade deadline a few weeks away, you still look for the Patriots to maybe go out and get another big receiver, somebody that can stretch the field, maybe a Mike Sims Walker from Jacksonville. Sources say he might be available coming up. Maybe even go out and get Vincent Jackson from the San Diego Chargers and bring him in, another big play, big receiver that can go up and just get the ball and clear out that underneath stuff for Wes Welker, for Tate, for these smaller receivers so that they can do what they want to do. If they don't do it, it's going to be a little bit of a problem. You look for the balance of power might be shifting in the AFC East towards the Jets because the Patriots are going to struggle a little bit offensively without having that there. It's just going to be a whole different look for them. That's all we have this week to touch on in football news. Stay ahead for Richards Rants. This week on Richards Rants, we're going to talk about basketball, and in specific, the Miami Heat. And I'm just going to give my opinion on why I think it's a bunch of baloney that people are claiming the Heat are going to win 70 games, 5 championships. I just don't believe that this team is built to do that this year. You look at their big men, you look at Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Being from Ohio, got a lot of love for Big Z, but 2 years ago, when Cleveland played Orlando, he was the main reason why they didn't get out of that series. All he's done in that time is getting a little bit older and lose a little bit more of his game. I don't believe that you can win a championship with him being your only real big man. And then you look at Chris Bosh showing his true softness by saying he doesn't want to play the center position. Well, in my experience, you do what you have to do to win a championship. If they ask you to play center, you play center, especially when you come together the way they did this year. In my mind, yes, the preseason things have looked good, even with Dwayne Wade getting a little hurt, but Dwayne Wade gets hurt every year. What's going to happen when he gets hurt in the regular season? What's going to happen if any of them get hurt? And they did bring in a few good role players, Mike Miller, but Mike Miller is really the only person on that team that can just hit a spot-up, knockdown jump shot, and though it's only preseason, he doesn't seem to be doing that right now. I think as you go into the regular season, yes, everything looks good now in the preseason, but as you go into the regular season, they're not going to be playing this team man, and they're going to have to get out and transition, and they're going to have to push the ball. They're going to have to play a lot of defense to generate their points, and I believe that LeBron James will run into the same problem he had in Cleveland, where somebody's going to dominate the ball, dribble, then with 7 seconds left in the shot clock, somebody's going to take it to the basket and look to kick it out. The problem is I think he's going to see a lot of 2-1-2 zones, a lot of 3-2 zones, not 2-3, where they put 3 men on the outside so that they can't penetrate that middle of the floor, because Big Z is not a back to the basket, demand the paint type of center. He's a pick and pop kind of guy. He's somebody that's going to drift away from the basket and look to shoot a jump shot. So if you keep them guys from attacking the rim, you're not going to get a lot right there by the basket. So I look for them to have a 3-2 zone or a 2-1-2 zone to keep LeBron James and Dwayne Wade from penetrating that defense. And they're going to have to shoot a lot of jump shots this year when they're in the half court. Because let's face it, people are going to bring their A game against the Heat every single night. I do think they'll continue to build throughout the years, but to say that they'll win 70 games this year, I just believe is absurd, especially with some of these basketball experts who know the game as well as they claim to know the game. Coaches, analysts, all claiming that they're going to win all these games this year. But do you really think a coach in his right mind is going to go into a game against the Miami Heat and let them play man against them? Furthermore, anybody with a legitimate big man, Boston, Orlando, LA, they're going to destroy and dominate the Miami Heat, especially in the half court, because all you have to do is throw the ball into your big man. Look for teams like Memphis, who can match up with them on the outside athletically on defense, and also have a big guy like Marc Gasol who can go down there and pound on the boards and just wear Zydrunas Ilgauskas down, and Anthony and Udonis Haslem. Look for them to be able to contend with and beat the Miami Heat. It's not a given that they're going to come out and win games like people think they're going to. You don't just take all their stats and add it together. It's a thing called chemistry. It's called teamwork. And then with all the pressure that's been put on them, you wonder how good they're going to perform at the end of the year when, yeah, they'll make the playoffs, but Dwayne Wade was making the playoffs before. Chris Bosh was making the playoffs before, and LeBron James was making the playoffs before. That's not why they got together, especially when they're already making excuses. LeBron James, and I quote him saying, "Oh, it's going to be a good test for us to play Boston the first game of the season, but they've been together a little bit longer than we have, so they'll be a little more used to playing with each other than we are." That's not, you don't want to cop out that early in the game, LeBron. You're already making excuses for games you're going to lose. So that tells you right there how big the pressure's on. That tells you right there how much pressure they're feeling to win and try and win every night because they know everybody's going to bring their A game towards them. That's all we have this week for Richards Rants. We just want you guys to keep tuning in. We upload new videos. We want you to keep sending the emails at ab3sports@gmail.com, checking us out on Twitter at ab3tweets, and also keep following us on YouTube at www.youtube.com/ab3sports. We want to thank everybody for joining us this week. We'll look to see you Thursday for our Dick's Picks and Fantasy Show, and everybody have a great week.